We will now call the meeting to order. We have a public hearing, and the first one is on the budget. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. First one is on our fiscal year budget, 12-13 budget. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the town on the budget? We do ask if anybody, please just tell us who you are, your name and address for the record. It looks like no one, so we will close out the public hearing for the budget. And we also have a public hearing in regards to a rental property restoration ordinance that we're in the process of discussing. Is there anyone who would like to address the town on the rental home registration ordinance? Okay.
I'm Steve Crater, Center Realty. I'd like to talk to you.
Well, you can come up to the podium here and give us your name and address for the record. If you're not a resident of the town, just tell us if you're a business or property owner or what it may be, so we'll know if you're here. And we're asking everybody to keep it to about 3 minutes too.
Okay, I'm Steve Crater. I'm the broker in charge of Center Realty, also the owner of Center Realty, which is an Irmo-based business for 26 years. I am a town resident currently in Coatsworth Subdivision. And I also manage over 100 homes in Irmo. And what my position here today is, I'd like to, first of all, I wanted to ask how many people on town council actually have rental properties themselves or ever been a landlord. There are certain laws to landlords already in place. I just think they are not fully enforced. During the time Miss Betty worked for the town, she called my office occasionally and said, we got this yard over here that had grown up too high. We immediately dispatched somebody there. It's voluntary. I didn't even ask, is there a rule that said I had to do that? No. I immediately did it. The landlord rule, as you're putting it out to us, applies only to landlords. I find that disturbing. If you got a landlord sitting there on one side of the street, and it's directly across the street you got a homeowner, and both those houses look bad because they got grass or parking in the yard, or they got a roof problem, or a garage door problem, or paint problem, whatever the problem is that is distasteful to you, why can't we have an ordinance that covers both of them? Why do we have to say this landlord's got to fix up, this person over here doesn't? I have a big problem with it, with government controlling like that or making those kind of comments or laws. I have other issues that you may not be thinking about. During the last 3 years, we have had the worst economic performance in real estate that I can think of, and I've been in the business almost 35 years. And during that time period, I've seen people, landlords, come and go. I've seen good landlords, bad landlords. Property managers, same way. But at the same token, I've seen good laws and bad laws. I have had to deal with Lexington laws, Springdale laws, West Columbia laws. The City of Columbia, 2 years ago, tried to have a $15 registration program, and it went straight down the tubes. So my first thought about this law is there's another law I got to listen to and try to comply with. It's just going to go down the tube. Number two, I don't think it's fair. Number three, you got people that, like I said, the last 3 years, the economic downturn in real estate has caused major economic problems in families to the point to destroy them. I've watched them. I've had people try to give me keys to their house. I rented them out for them. Now they're able to maintain the payments. I'm not saying all of them do, but most of them are maintaining the payments. Now, what happens in my business is that just like you, or you ride by and see these houses, I ride by and look at my houses. I've got tenants in them, and I got now state law to comply with. State tells me what I can do. State says I can't just walk over and knock on that door and say, mow your yard. Get that car out of there. State law says they can sue you. And of course, I don't want to be sued. That's not a good place to be in as a property manager. So how are you all of a sudden going to jump over to state law? I've got to give adequate notice. I've got to write down all this stuff and then eventually take it down to magistrate's court to enforce it. But what you going to do? You going to start fining me every day? That's what some of the subdivisions try to do. And I got to sue them to beat that program. So how do you handle this? My owner has no money. My owner is that close to bankruptcy. And cannot do those necessary repairs today. How are you going to handle that? You going to fine us? Am I going to start having to write checks to town of Irmo? How about my business? How is Center Realty going to be responsible? Again, state law. You can't jump over state law. And I have a problem with that. I have much more. I understand. I was just getting ready to say, I have so much more I could bring up. But I'm understand I'm limited on time. But I'll be glad to call you. Or if you want to call me, Center Realty, 749-1234.
May I say something, Mr. Gray? Steve, last week's, 2 weeks ago's meeting, we brought up having the homeowner under the same arrangement as rental property. And what we decided was to see to iron this out first, see if it worked, and then make all homes. Because we agree with you on that. Everybody ought to be accountable. But have you seen a copy of it?
Yes, I read it. Yeah.
I think it changed.
Well, may I say one thing? Okay, all these homes, we already got problems in logistics already. Now you're going to tell me also that you're going to come and inspect my property before I can let somebody in? I got people that move out at night. Got people moving in next morning. We have staff that's going to come in, and I have to be there too, by the way. So how's that going to work? So I have that, that's a, you know, maybe it's something y'all can figure out. To me, that's a big, big problem. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Mr. Craig, one quick question. What do you suggest we do for houses that are dilapidated and falling down that you rent out? What do you
Now, you just talking about the ones renting out or doing homeowners too?
I'm saying your property.
Well, you're not going to find anything like that on my property now.
Okay.
You know, mine's in good shape.
No, I'm just
But now, on the standpoint, is there not existing laws already on the books to cover majority of this? Do you not have the enforcement authority already? As I was telling you, I've probably operated for 10 years before Betty called me one day and said, hey, you got a house over here on Russian Wind. You need to do two things there. And I immediately did it. You know, that phone call put an action in. It was voluntary at the time. Now, you're going to have other people say, well, there's so many arguments, I don't want to bring them up. I'm sure they're going to talk about them now. But on my side of the coin, if you're going to put a law out there, put it across the board right
Yeah, I
now.
understand about the penalties and stuff like that. What about the registration part? If we separated our ordinances in two pieces, you have the registration part and then you have the penalty part, the code enforcement part. How do you feel about the registration part?
Okay, now, my understanding, if you need registration on the ownership, you can go right to the county records right now and find that. Is that difficult to do?
Well, the way we're looking at it is that you're running a business because you're running out property in the town. And we just want a quicker way to get to you, the quote-unquote owner of the property. So we're asking you to register your property as a landlord, that you're renting out this property, going to contact information directly to you. How do you feel about that piece?
I don't feel that's a good program either. Again, here's the problem that you've run into. The City of Columbia did the same thing, fell apart, and they even made us register for the water service. And then when we registered for that water service and the tenant moved out, next thing we know, we got a $300 water bill. You know, here they made us try to pay. So there's another issue there. Finding owners is not difficult to do.
Well, we had some problem finding owners one time. You know, one owner lived in Peru, we couldn't find the guy, we didn't know where he was.
With registered letters,
That's
certified
what I'm saying.
letters.
But in the meantime, the property still is in disrepair, we need to get it fixed. So a quick way to do it is to have you come down to town hall and say, here, I'm the landlord, I'm the owner of this property, I'm renting it out, here's $50 to register your property. Now we know exactly, right then, you're the person to contact, the person that pretty property.
Again, I think you can just go right to the county record and send it to the registered owner.
But what's your pushback on that? I mean, what is it, on that piece of the ordinance? I mean, I understand you don't like the other side of it, but what about that piece?
Registration fees are terrible. They normally do not go anywhere except somebody's pocket somewhere, or some agency's pocket somewhere. As far as working them out, I've paid registration fees for like 20 years, different places. I haven't seen anything come out of it. So I don't know how you're going to, unless you got somebody else you're going to bring in to control all this. I don't see the town of Irmo absorbing all this action you're talking about putting together. I just don't see it. Now, you're talking about $50 per person, per property. I got a little problem with that. I think 50's strong, 15, I had a problem with 15, so I can't really say.
Well, what's your average rental property? Here, is it about $500 a month, $600 a month?
Sir?
What's your average rental here, $600 a month?
It's going to be more than that, about $750.
$750 a month? Okay.
Now, keep in mind, I got 13 houses that I own in Friarsgate. I pay $1,800 to $2,600 for taxes per year there. Okay? Per year. A lot of you don't pay that much in taxes for your home. So we're already paying extra. Now, Senator Jakey Knox, in his infinite wisdom, told me one day that all you got to do is raise your rent. Well, you can't just raise your rent. That's hard to do, especially in the economic term, all that we're in today. So again, I implore upon you, before you pass any ordinance requiring just landlords, please look at it fair and square across the board, and there's a lot more to it. And again, I offer this. Call me. I'll be glad to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to address the council on the landlord ordinance? Hearing none, we will close out that, and then I will recognize, just trying to see here, this would be Councilor Walker to do the pledge of allegiance and the invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear Lord, bless this council and our decisions we make tonight. Hope that we can come up with a reasonable solution to our ordinances that we pass tonight that will be comforting and amenable to everybody. Amen.
Next item on our agenda is the reading of the minutes. Do we have a motion for approval of the minutes for May 15th?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approval as they are, do so with show of hand. And the administrative briefing, Mr. Brown, is there anything on the briefing you'd like to add?
Yes, sir, a couple of things. Planning Commission met last night to discuss the stamp fee and the zoning requirements for locations to have the video gaming machines. And they discussed it for a few minutes, and then they decided that they felt that they were illegal, so they went ahead and tabled the discussion and did not make any recommendation.
So it was illegal.
That the machines themselves are. That was their opinion.
So they didn't make any recommendation on the zoning or anything? Okay.
Yes, sir. You've all noticed CSX working around town. They are going to start working on crossings tomorrow. and they're expecting to be here between Chapin and St. Andrews Road down by Shaw Industries for about 6 weeks.
Didn't somebody complain about that? So somebody was,
Not that long ago.
yeah.
The Thames Valley one that we mentioned.
I think they actually started thinking about it today. I think
Yeah.
told me they had done.
Yeah, they barricaded it.
It is, okay.
And they're hoping to be done with each one of the crossings in 2 to 3 days, depending on the weather. And in front of you, I put a copy of ordinance 1212. That version is one that came from Mr. Moore with his changes.
This is for the 100.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Let me see that.
And that's all I have.
Any questions of Mr. Brown on the briefing or anything, anyone?
Yes, the property, closing. Mr. Moore,
The last I heard, I had spoken with the lawyer for the bank, who indicates that they have agreed to accept and provide us the form, the type of deed that I wanted. They have indicated that it's going to take them a period of time in order to secure a title insurance policy that will allow them to give the type of deed that we want. But they have signed the contract. The contract has been delivered to Bob, and I am told that we should have a closing imminently. Now, what imminently means, I don't know. Barry, did you talk to Mr. Sidley?
I did.
What did he say?
He said he's waiting on the attorney, your attorney, to close the thing.
No, we're waiting on their attorney to basically give us the go-ahead that he's ready. We've done the title work. It's already in my office. I will try to touch base with him tomorrow to make sure he knows it.
Okay, so now let me get this straight. I'm very naive, and maybe you can help me, Mrs. Conlon, about closing and title work and deeds and stuff. The issue was we wanted a general deed, and we got that from the bank. The bank says, we'll give you one. Okay, great, we got that signature done.
Nope.
We did get that signature done. Okay, where am I missing?
All right, here is what they wanted to provide you. The property that they own, this 14 acres, they secured by way of a foreclosure.
Correct.
Now, generally, if you buy a deed, you get a warranty, which basically says, I'm selling it to you, and I promise you that I own it, and if I don't own it, you can basically look to me to make title good.
Correct.
If we're going to spend $200,000 plus of town money, and then if we're going to invest any large sum of money to turn this into a park, I want to be sure that the town of Irmo can look to our seller, the bank, if title turns out to be bad for any reason, whether of record or not of record. The way you do that is you get a warranty deed, a general warranty deed, which says, I own it, I'm transferring it to you, and if it goes bad, you can look to me.
So,
What they wanted to do was to give you a deed which says, we bought it out of foreclosure, we're giving you what we bought. My response to that is, no, no, no. When you list something for sale, you list it for sale with a warranty deed. That is what is acceptable and passable in the marketable trade. Now, you have a situation to where we have searched the title, and the title appears to be good. From the record, as best we can tell, the title is good.
how far do we go back?
I think we do a 60-year search. I don't do title searches,
Okay.
but my lawyer in Saluda is ready to go with the thing. There are 4 separate lots. All 4 have been foreclosed in the same transaction. Well, I got into an argument with the bank's lawyer about the fact that he wanted me to basically accept a lesser degree of title, which is called a limited warranty deed.
We ain't doing that.
We ain't doing that, exactly. Now, I told him that That's a deal breaker as far as I'm concerned. I would not recommend to the town that it take anything less than a general warranty deed. And they said no. And I said, great. He said, well, let me get back to the bank. So they got back to the bank, and the bank basically said, okay, we will give you a general warranty deed. And it took us about 2 weeks of bickering back and forth with him writing me nasty letters and me telling him no, 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 before they finally acquiesced. They acquiesced 2 weeks ago. You got the contract, Bob?
It would be 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago, we got the contract. But Lawyer McVeigh basically says to me, okay, before we can close, we want to buy an owner's title insurance policy, which basically protects us in case we have to stand good on the warranty. And my response to him is, okay, if you want to spend the money to get a title policy which protects you, I am willing to wait on closing until you can give me the deed that I have to have. Now, he basically has assured me that when he gets his title insurance policy, they're ready to close. And he is going to let us know. We have told him we are ready to close within a couple of days' notice. It's going to take us a couple of days to get the money in place. And he is supposedly going to be back to me when he's ready to close. I talked to Mr. Sibley last week, I think it is, and he indicated that he was going to talk to Lawyer McVeigh and say, do you have your title policy so you can close? And I have not heard back from him. But we are ready to close on our end of the deal, and Bob is ready to close on his end of the deal. I will call the lawyer tomorrow again and just say, where are we? We're ready to close. The one other thing that you have to understand about this transaction, we have access to this property off of Eastview, okay? We have an informal, unwritten agreement that we also will be given access to the property off of Church Street. The lady who will have to give us the short amount of access off of Church Street is old, and she has a lawyer who is a son, and he's the person we're having to deal with. He has also assured us through Mr. Sibley that he will give us the access that we need from Church, or want from Church Street. Now, we're going to, and my understanding is, we're going to close the 14 acres without having the actual written access in place from Church Street.
Right.
We're still going to have to go back and get that access from the lady.
Right.
Let's assume for a moment that she changes her mind and says, I'm not going to give you the access. That would be stupid, but people have done stupid things before. At that point in time, our option would be to go in and condemn the access, which would cost us probably very little money to do. Might
Well,
take
I'm not
some-
worried about the access
Okay.
to Church Street yet.
All right.
I just want to get
All
the
right.
property closed.
I just want to make sure I'm disclosing to you what the status of this is.
Right.
As far as I am concerned, the delay at this point in time is the bank getting the policy of title insurance it insists upon in order to give us a general warranty deed.
Did they need a title company? Was it Chicago Title? Was that one of those companies that give them?
They
a title?
have,
They need a recommendation for a
They-
title company or something?
their law firm has its own title insurance company, so they should be in a position. Look,
Buy a policy.
I'm
How long
with
does it take to buy a policy?
Barry,
5 minutes?
again.
Couple checks?
Look, he told me that as soon as they basically had the title policy in hand, that they would be ready to close. I'm just telling you what they're telling me.
What we need to do? Get to the marry the guy that's doing policies or something? I mean,
I
how long
don't-
does it take to do a policy? It doesn't take 3 weeks.
If, what's going on with them, let
3 weeks to get a policy?
On the foreclosed piece of property, there might be issues.
yeah, there will be issues, okay? And therein lies the problem, is they're having to do their own title search, and what he is if I were to guess, since I have not talked to him since a while, if I were to guess, what he is waiting for is not simply a title binder. He's waiting for the actual delivery of the policy in his hand before they give us the warranty deed. That can take 3 weeks to 4 weeks to basically get done. Therein is where I understand the delay is. The transaction's coming down. We're buying the property. I'm more impatient on this than you are because I want to go out and start eating the underbrush. I want to get that stuff out of there. But it's just, when are they ready to close? We are ready. We have the money. We have the title search, title work. Everything is basically done for the town. It's done. But it is in the process of being closed.
And I appreciate you looking out for our assets in this. I really do.
I know that.
And I just want you to understand that if it's a matter of taking paper from point A to point B, I'll be glad to take my Yukon and drive it from point A to point B if you need to.
That's not the problem.
See, you know, a lot of times people get hung up on getting stuff done. They let it sit on their desk. They don't worry about it. They forget about it or whatever. But I mean, let's stay on top of this. I think 3 months is a long time for us to hold a check for $230,000.
But Barry, it's taken. We have only had. You got to understand this. We've only had a signed contract on their part for 3 weeks.
Okay, that's fine.
The argument was the contract that we signed and submitted to them was a contract they were unwilling to sign until 3 weeks ago.
Okay, we're past that point. We got that part done, right?
Yep. We have a valid contract which is enforceable. We will close this property.
For my peace of mind, are we securing owner's title insurance for us?
Yes, of course. Yes, ma'am. I got that covered in place, and that binder has already been issued, already been written. It hasn't been issued, but it's been written. It's sitting there in the file, ready to go as soon as the man tells me. I mean, and you know, I'll call McVeigh first thing in the morning again and basically say, "Where are you?" But it's them dragging their feet on their owner's policy before they will give us the warranty deed.
That's fine. I don't want us to be sitting around waiting for somebody to get a paper from that desk to this office and nobody's doing it because they don't want to drive over there to do it. I mean, if that's the case, let's just move and, I'll pay you $2 gas, $2 gallon
Look,
gas.
if it was drive to Florence to pick up a piece of paper, I would already have a law clerk down there, Barry. Hey, that's not the problem. This is a dragging of feet that is beyond my ability to control.
I understand.
But I got a contract and I have an agreement, and the delay which has existed in my refusal to basically accept what they wanted to do in the contract in regard to the quantum of deed they wanted to give you.
Okay.
And I think I was very wise to have insisted upon you getting the deed you deserve for that kind of money.
Any other questions from you, Mr. Moore? Or Mr. Brown on the administrative review? If none, next item is the receipt of communications, and we have a report from the Oaks Truck Commission on the, amendments to the agenda. Is there any amendments to the agenda?
I'd like to offer one to have an executive session to discuss a contractual matter regarding a proposed business coming into the town.
So that'd be an executive session for economic development or
Contractual matter of economic development work.
Are you going to enter into executive session now? Or
No,
Right,
do
yeah,
you
we-
have an executive session on the agenda?
Well, that's right, we did, we put
We've got
that
an
on.
executive session on.
Put it back on there, so, all right. that's fine.
Okay. So any other amendments to the agenda? None. Then we'll go to receipt communications, and we have a report from the Oaks Truck Commission on the proposal for this year's festival location, 4 locations, I guess.
Mayor, Council, the Orchestra Commission for 2012 has chosen the existing Irmo Town Park as the site for the festival. I'll have a more formal proposal for you, including a map and road closings by your next meeting. Plus, it'll give me a chance to talk with the chief too and find out if we have anything in the way there as far as road closings. That's all I got.
Have you got any other locations other than that?
We've gone through all our choices up to this point, including the past site, which was Irmo Village, but that's out of the question this year.
So we talked to them.
Have spoken.
So if that one doesn't pan out, have we got any backups or anything that, because it was turned down a couple of years ago,
What's that?
the Irmo Park location.
Well, I'm sure if we have to scramble, we can do it. We're pretty good at it.
Can you be scrambling now, or?
Yeah, we're always scrambling.
But the only concerns I have, of course, you know what they were a couple of years ago, was the church and the neighbors and different things, fire hydrants and stuff like that. Are y'all able to resolve those issues this time, or?
I think we're close to having most of them resolved that were issues last year. We were aware of them, so we approached them first this year. A couple we still have to try to resolve, but I'm pretty confident we can get it done.
Talking to, say, the church and the
Yeah,
neighbors?
we've talked to some of which. We'll just have to get everybody, all the ducks in a row as we approach it.
And as far as I know, a couple of years ago, there were concerns about the park itself, damage to the park and that.
Yeah, and we've spoken with with Whit, and he seems to think that it's mature enough now that it can handle the stress and I don't think anything's going to be trampled upon, or nobody goes crazy at the festival. It's pretty calm. So
It's always been on concrete. park.
it's always been on concrete. I think it'd be a real joy to have it in a green environment
So we
with
need to
shade.
do what,
And,
May 19th? Is it?
You talking about putting the band down there or up here?
talking about putting them up here in the parking lot.
Are you
We
gonna
still got a
have-
couple more things to work out there too. So, but it's like I said, I'll have a detailed map for you at the
Now, you know we
next
can't drink
meeting.
in the park, right?
Can't drink in the
beer in
park.
the park, right? You know we can't drink beer in the park.
That's why we're going to put it on the roads. Okay.
They have to change our ordinance or change something. I don't know if we change.
Well, it'd be May 19th before y'all, are y'all gonna get us the information before, so that night we can decide, or?
Mhm. I'll have it all for you probably within the week,
And everything we need to make a decision, everything.
as much as you always have.
That don't sound like a good answer.
Well, I'll give you everything I can. Absolutely.
Okay.
And just for the record, that'd be June 19th.
June
Yeah,
19th.
Any other questions? One question I do have to ask, I received an email today, it would be under receipt of communications as well, but it also has to do with y'all, from Scott Shea
Mhm.
on an invoice. Is there a reason why he hasn't been paid?
Not that I'm aware of.
Is there a reason why they can't pay him?
Well, there's no money in their budget until July 1st.
We just put 39,000 in there.
Well, in their savings, but not in their budget. It's a different account.
Their budget
Council would have to pull it
The
out
work
of their
he did-
savings to put it in their budget.
last year was in the 2011, 2012, when you paid out of that.
What was,
He did the
No,
work.
We can't go back. We've already
This
closed out
year.
that budget, had it audited already.
right, this year, we can cut the check, there's no money, I don't know where to take it out of, there's not any funds for that. I didn't know if they wanted to wait until July 1 with their new budget year. where
Well,
the
let me ask this,
budget, their
did
money's
one
in
contract
there.
with somebody to do work for them, and didn't have the money to pay them, or what would be the answer to that?
Did we not have the money to pay him?
When you contracted with them to do the website stuff.
He did the work a year ago.
and-
He did the work a year ago and submitted an invoice, what, a month ago?
We only had the invoice up.
We only have the invoice for a month, so, you know, we're willing to pay him. I don't know what y'all do with the money. I don't know how that works, so.
Well, if y'all paid your
What
administrator?
what email are you talking about? I'm looking at my, you got an email person?
I don't write the checks, Hardy, you do.
I don't write 'em.
Well, I mean, you're the one who,
I don't even sign them.
you know, well, that's right.
I'm just wondering why he hasn't been paid. It wasn't a whole lot of money, I think it was $750 or something like that.
Right, but like I said, he just turned in the invoice.
$750 for a website doesn't work?
No, it worked, but
Okay.
that's something else.
I don't see an email here. You got an email person or something?
Hmm.
Oh, okay, that's funny.
Hmm.
I thought we was gonna get all the emails sent to everybody, so we can talk.
No, the point, we want to pay him. I mean, obviously, it's just that, like I said, he turned in the invoice a month ago, and it's for work he did a year ago. You can't pay unless you have a current invoice, and if we had the invoice a year ago, we wouldn't pay it.
Well, I saw
you
it,
know.
but I think the emails went back to March. When I looked at it.
I don't think it was back in March. I think it's about a month.
Wanted to find out, because I think he wanted to get his money.
I'm sure he does, you know.
I think it just needs to be taken care of.
I agree.
We'll talk about it more too. Yeah, I just got it this afternoon, we just called, we just seen it to us, so I'll let them know. Any other received communication? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything? The next item is the presentation by citizens, and this is for items on the agenda tonight. So if any citizen would like to speak to us about items that are on the agenda, please do so. The only thing we ask is that you give us your name and address for the record. Is there anyone who would like to speak to us about stuff on the record? No? Being no one, then we'll go on. Next item is under unfinished business. Second reading of ordinance 1210 to adopt our budget for this year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
And any discussion?
Just again, like to state that our budget this year is actually a small, though it is small decrease from last year, and it is again with no millage in the town of Irmo.
Any other discussion?
I believe the budget's less than it was last year.
Yeah, just by a small amount, but less than it was last
I
year.
don't know how in the world we did that. We can do the same services we provided last year and cost less in an inflationary time. I mean, what are y'all pulling over our rules over our constituents' face? What are we leaving out here? You leaving out the pizza at night or something? I mean, what's going on? Something's got to give. I mean, gas is still $3.50 a gallon, right?
I think it's frugal administration.
It is. We had $80,000 surplus last year.
Okay.
So we just took some of that out.
We had how much?
$80,000 surplus last year.
But some of it came through from that. Several lawsuits. The only comment I wanted to make is, it is a very good budget. I think Mr. Brown and staff and department heads are doing a good job. There are some things in it that I personally, if we voted line by line by line by line, I probably wouldn't vote for some of the stuff. But it's only a few things. I think there was a small deficit for the public record of about 12, I can't see it now, 12,987, which in the years past, when we've even anticipated the deficit, by the end of the year, we've had more revenue come in than anticipated too, so we probably really actually will not end up with it. But being that said, you know, again, if there was stuff in there that you could line by line, I'd probably vote against it. But as a whole, I think the budget is very good, and I think it's very livable, and probably a little bit low on the revenue end, so by the end of the year, I think it'll balance out pretty good. Any other comments? And for the record, for people to know, we'll just give the total expenditures is $4,466,492. And our revenue is $4,466,492. And as Councilman Hoop said, it's with zero millage. And without an increase in our business license or anything else that I know of. And if the state legislature today or tomorrow passes the local government fund increase, we might get enough to cover the 12,000 too. Hopefully. All in favor, do so with show of hands. And next item is the second reading of ordinance 1211 to amend our Irmo business license for the stamp fees for video sweepstake amusement machines. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Paul, I got your email regarding the concern we had about the one person, the one business in town that may be affected by this directly, and the concern you had about the $500 fee being a little bit excessive. But again, the thought that I had from assessing the $500 fee was not to try to break somebody's bank or to make it so tough for them to do it, but to make it cost them to do it. And in other words, I'm not trying to make it easy for them to put a lot of video poker machines in there or sweepstake machines in their business, but then I want them to pay us if they do decide to do it. Pay us a reasonable fee in the hopes that they won't do it. I know it sounds a little.
Now, didn't you initially have it $1,000?
No, that was Kathy.
No,
I've always been $500. I thought that was excessive enough, but not ridiculous.
Well, the unknown at that last meeting was that the sales of these, the revenue from these machines are going into the gross sales, which is part of their business license fee. So,
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. I don't know how much, I don't know how profitable these things are or how not profitable they are. I mean, and I don't care. I mean, the fact that they got it in their business is what I care about. Now, if somebody wants to open up a sweepstake parlor, I think was one of the concerns we had. Somebody wants to put 20 of these machines in their business. That's all of their revenue from their business would go from these machines, okay? Because they don't have anything else to sell, maybe some pop or some potato chips or something like that. But the bottom line is, I'm not going to sit there and try to micromanage how much money goes into these machines and how much comes out, because that's what the state is trying to figure out now, whether they're illegal gambling machines. And I'm going to let the state do that. What I want to do is prevent somebody, or make them think twice, that, well, I want to put some machines in my business. It's going to cost me $500 per machine per year, starting the third reading of this ordinance. And I would say, okay, if I don't want to spend the $500, don't put machines in my business. If I think it's excessive. If I'm making enough revenue, or if it's drawing enough people into my business to justify me spending that, let them. Let's get our cut out of it, And I think that's why the $500 fee, it's not cheap enough to allow somebody, well, okay, I'll spend $250 to do it, and it's not $1,000. That's excessive. That's a little bit. I'm not going to draw that much money out of a machine. You know what I mean?
I understand, but we should be getting the sales. Their gross sales should be part of their fee. Wouldn't that be correct, Bob?
Should be.
It should be, and I'm sure that every businessman we have in this town of Irmo is reporting every nickel that they make. And I know that they do that because I'm a businessman. I report as much as I make and to the city of Columbia. So I'm not going to sit there and micromanage. I'm not going to sit in their restaurant or their convenience store with a clicker and count every time somebody puts $1 in one of those things to see that, we're reporting you made $500 today on this machine, and you're reporting that as part of your. I'm not going to do that because I don't care. All I care about is that if you have a machine, you pay the town of Irmo $500 for that sticker, and we'll let the state find out whether it's legal or not. That's all. I'm not trying to make it easy for them, but then I'm not trying to be ridiculous about it at the same time, saying $1,000 fee per machine. I think $500 right in the middle, and it's expensive, but it's not ridiculous, you know what I mean?
It'll be the highest fee of any municipality, I believe, is that right?
I don't know what they're charging.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't compare us with anybody else. I don't know.
Didn't, this guy named Scott Slanton at the Municipal Association say something that they were charging?
He said they were charging between $500 and $1,000. I don't know which municipality he was talking about. I know Rockville, Darlington, they charge $500. And they have a stamp fee, plus they have a moratorium in place.
Yes, yeah.
And for that food of thought, I think it's the Burlington area, Alamance County or something, whatever, I was reading their local newspaper, on the iPad. I do use it. And, they have what's called, and I can't think of the name, do you remember what they call that name? They have it's like a provisional license fee, I think they call it. And it was like $12,000 a year based on life. They were upping it from whatever it was to 30% of the thing, or to a certain dollar amount. And the article, the people who own those internet cafes and stuff were complaining that it was going to go from $12,000 to $30,000 for a license now because of the change in the provisional fee. But when the guy spoke about how much money that internet cafe did in a year, it was way up there. But now his profits were not, but they were still $31,000 a year off the machine. And
How much do they do?
he was making $300,000 or $400,000 out of the business.
$300,000 or $400,000?
Out of the business, internet cafe.
Really?
Now, they did like $1 million and some dollars worth doing
You have it for Maxwell Management.
whatever. But he had a bunch of in there. I don't know how many, just a whole building full of them, but,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Our own planning commission couldn't decide whether or not these things were legal or not. You know, they said.
well, it wasn't their choice to decide legally.
No, but they couldn't come up with a consensus to say that, you know.
Well,
I'm
they
glad
just
that
said
you
they
understand either.
Exactly.
They're fixing to adjourn, and we talked about that. Well, it's maybe something that we ought to wait on the legislature, but it was just like the situation with the predator law. We waited, and we waited, and it took so long, and now we know that they're fixing to adjourn, and they're only going to come back and take up their little hot issues. It's going to be another year before it'll ever be taken up again. I think we need to move forward with some kind of permitting, or either they make it illegal and close them down.
Exactly. In the meantime.
Not just talk about it.
Yeah, in the meantime, let's get our cut.
Any other discussion?
No.
Y'all ready to vote?
The ordinance that you have on the
Was
iPad
changed, yes.
was
Oh, yes.
changed, so
That's
it's
right, yeah,
amended from.
we need to make an amendment to this, because I think the original one just said
Correct.
video sweepstakes and amusements or something like that. Yeah, I
Correct.
had a note, I forgot. So we made a motion for the other ordinance. Does anyone make a motion to amend it to this?
Okay.
Well, I'll make the motion that.
Well, we can just amend it if you want.
Okay, well, I'll amend my motion then.
Or just make an amendment now that you want to accept this wording here.
Okay. It says $500 stamp fee per machine per year. It doesn't say per year on it. Do we need to say that? Do we need to say that? Or?
It said something there about
It says-
per year, and then it would be due again January 1, which is actually less than a year.
Where does it say that in the ordinance?
Yeah.
Well, your classification rate schedule is per year.
You get a business license in Irmo in October,
Correct.
you still got to get a new one in January.
Okay, but, I mean, it doesn't say stamp fee per year, per machine per year on this ordinance. Do we need to say that or not?
No,
The
the
classification.
classification rate schedule where this would be added.
Right.
Has
Per year.
per year.
Okay,
Why would you in the ordinance?
Because the business license is renewed every year.
okay, great. correct, and this will take effect, I guess, upon third reading, which means it'll still open for 2012,
Correct,
and then I'll do it again in 2013.
correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
Is that, so,
Yeah.
after I make this amendment, and I'd like to amend my ordinance to say this.
You're gonna make an amendment to change section 20 from whatever it was before. I think it just said video sweepstake machines and amusement machines to this new wording here. And
Yeah, we want to read this one, this is the word here.
And for the record, what we're talking about, right now, it says video sweepstake machines with rewards, skill-based machines with prizes, internet cafe terminals with promotion, or any other electronic or mechanical game device with promotional prizes or rewards. Basically, the last one just said video sweepstake machines and amusements, and I think we had a concern that would cover Pac-Man, or whatever the equivalent of that is today. And that's the only question. Is there a second to Barry's amendment to change this terminology here?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion on this?
On the, being renewed every year, wouldn't it be wise to make the July be the starting date, starting month?
Well, they gotta get their business
They still
license
have
in
to get it done in
January.
January.
So when they're getting their business license, they would just pay additionally for this at that time too.
So they've already paid the business license.
Yeah, they have.
So
So it's just like a new business coming in and saying, or if somebody gets one next year and then decides 6 months later they want to turn around and get video machines, then they'd come and get a license for that.
Okay.
And the only question I have is just to make sure that this still exempts people who have, I don't know, whatever you call those things, I'm going to call them pinball machines.
Pinball machines are
They would be covered by it.
correct, they're already regulated at $12.
Oh, okay. Any other questions or discussion? And first of all, we need to vote on the amendment, and then we'll vote on the ordinance. So all in favor of the amendment, do so with show of hand. And all in favor of second reading of ordinance 1211 as amended, do so with show of hand. And all opposed.
So was that unanimous?
No, again. For no reason, I just still think they're real big on, I'm just kind of, I think we ought to just leave it alone, but that's that. Next item is second reading of ordinance 1212 to amend the Irmo Town Code, Chapter 11, rental property registration. Is there a motion? And right now, too, the one that was in your package is the one that we got. And then we also got the one from Mr. Moore that I think was laying on the desk that we can amend to that if we want to. And I've got a few changes I'm going to pass to y'all too, and we can work through that. But is there a motion for the ordinance the way it is in the package? Yeah, the one that we voted on last time, because that's the one that's kind of in there for second reading. And then we'll have to change it from there.
All right, I'll make the motion that we approve the ordinance as we received it in our package.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this one, or is there any motion to change to the one Jake did? I don't know if y'all had time to read it. If not, we can go through some other changes and then change it to that one next time as well, too, if you'd like to.
Could Jake maybe identify the changes?
Yeah, there are a bunch of them. And I still think that even with what I did today, the thing probably still needs a good bit of work. One of the things that I think is offensive to the landlords and probably unnecessary is this concept of an inspection we have before somebody moves into a rental house. you know, quite frankly, I don't think that we need to get the code enforcement officers into inspecting every time somebody moves in or out of a rental house. I think that's just a very bad idea, and it's micromanaging. You know, if you can't see it from the outside, and it's not bothering the neighborhood, I'm not certain that there's any reason to basically be going to this inspection cycle and so forth and so on. I also changed an awful lot of grammar in what was the original ordinance so that it actually is a little bit easier to read. I removed some sections in regard to the way the thing is basically enforced. I added a provision to make absolutely clear what the maximum fines were and to provide that they are maximum. Those are maximum. There's no requirement that the court do any of that. There were certain notification provisions which I modified to try to make them basically simpler. I still think that the laundry list on the end, which we basically say these are the things that need to be done, probably needs to be given attention by you to make sure you have covered all the things that I think that you were interested in covering when we had the slideshow. I'm not sure that everything that you were interested in actually shows up in the actual last page. I did not touch that, as that is basically the meat of the ordinance, and I think those are things that are better suited for your discussion than for my unilateral input. I simply attempted to take out some things which I felt were incredibly cumbersome and procedural in nature, and I did leave in there exactly as written the laundry list of items on the last page, because I think that those are the things that y'all need to really be debating if in fact you're going to pass an ordinance. You know, is this strong enough? Is it too strong? You know, is 8 inches on the grass too tall? Those are questions that are really not the questions for your lawyer, but are questions for you folks from a policy standpoint. You know, the things that I understood that we were really primarily concerned with when the slideshow was given were basically dilapidated siding, dilapidated trim work, lack of painting, dilapidated roofs, dilapidated storm doors, dilapidated garage doors, bad appearance of backyards from the street, parking in yards,
and so you took that out?
No, I didn't take any of that out. I just said that there was just a whole laundry list. Boats, I think, were basically talked about when you initially discussed and the placement of boats in front yards or side yards. All of those sorts of things were things that y'all discussed, and I think that as you go through and hash through any amendments you want to make, I'd highly recommend that you look at that laundry list and make sure that it has everything that you want to basically to cover. You know, one of the things that is being attempted here, I think, is to require these properties to be brought up to a level of civilized living in a densely populated area with an eye towards raising the standard of living for everybody, both the tenants as well as the homeowners. And you know, now is the time to make sure that when you look at that list that you basically cover those items that you want to cover. I'd highly recommend that before third reading you go over that laundry list and make sure that it's what you want it to say. Either cut it down or beef it up. But I changed a lot of grammar. I changed a lot of procedure. I attempted to streamline it. I still like the one that I wrote first better than I like this. That's what I like, and it doesn't matter. But I hope I have answered your question on what did I change. I don't think there's any reason for you to vote on my changes tonight. I think that you can discuss the changes that you're interested in and continue discussing, and can make your final changes to this thing on the third reading. But I've just submitted that to you as some recommended changes which I thought would make it better, not only from a grammatical standpoint and an ease to read standpoint, but procedurally I think that it's better with those small changes. Well, there's some of them are right significant changes. So I hope I answered your question. There's a lot of changes there.
Yeah, I went through and marked some. I think, there's some in there about changing 60 days to 30, and from the residential rental units, taking all the terminology of single-family homes and townhouses and that kind of stuff out. One thing we could do, because there are a lot of stuff here, I've submitted some stuff too that y'all may want to or not want to or whatever. But the little sheet that I gave you here, I think it's just one sheet. Yeah. One of the things that the section is 1117 is under business license. And I think I brought it up at a previous meeting. We talked about it to some degree, and then a resident also spoke to me about it. Is that if you own a home, say I own a home and I decide I'm moving out, and I'm moving to wherever, and I can't sell my house and I rent it. As a homeowner that's lived in the town for 5, 10, 20, 30 years, whatever it may be, should I have to pay a license fee since I'm renting my house while I'm trying to sell it? Because I'm not in the business to be a landlord. I'm just trying to rent it out and pay the thing until I get some. So I wrote up an exemption for that if that the annual business license would be waived for one dwelling if the owner lived in the dwelling as a primary residence prior to the home being vacated. So if they lived in that home and then moved out and then had it vacant while it was on the market and couldn't sell it and then decided to rent it, then they'd still get one. They just wouldn't pay the fee. That way we still have contact information and all that. I think it's something we should do just for the, because they typically really aren't business. And then the other things in there were, I felt like too, under section 1119, second paragraph, would be to add a statement that the landlord, owner, property manager, personnel, whoever, is responsible for making sure that last section gets in the hands of the tenant. So the tenant knows they're supposed to do yada, yada, yada. The landlord's responsible for doing it, but they also are responsible for letting the tenant know. So the tenant doesn't come back and tell us, we didn't know. We're kind of out of that loop because that's a lot of what happens now is they say, well, the landlord's supposed to fix that. We didn't know that, or they didn't tell us, and we get into this. So that would resolve that. Parking spaces is to delete per occupant as required by the town and change it to per vehicle owned or operated or registered by tenant. So if there's 4 cars there, they got to have 4 parking spaces. If there's two cars, then you got to have 2. If there's 10, they got to have 10. Whatever the landlord decides to rent to those people, if they've got X amount of cars, then they got to have X amount of space. And I don't see a problem with that. I mean, every business that's in the town of Irmo has parking requirements for their business based on the type of business they are, and whether they're retail or whether they're service related or whatever it is. There's parking requirements so that the business doesn't force people into the street, somebody else's parking lot, or whatever it may be. And then I changed the thing on the vehicles. I think before it said something about, they're not supposed to be there. I think this, in my opinion, just clarified. It said all vehicles that are on the property, doesn't matter, they must be licensed, registered, fully operational. If somebody lives in a home and they want to buy a car and work on it, fine. But if the landlord's going to rent a home to someone and they got a car that don't run, they don't need to drag it into town and park it there while they don't do anything to it and drag it out of town later. That's kind of where that thinking is coming from. And the only thing under trees, and then I added one on leaves, is that I know we've had some instance, and we, you know, even with this, what do you call it, stormwater thing, people taking it, and just either breaking it out to the road, not knowing they got to bag it, or bagging it and taking it out, putting it in the street, instead of leaving it in the yard until the trash people come. And that would kind of help clarify some of that, so that they don't come back later and say, oh, well, I didn't know we had to do that. And then those were some changes there. One thing we could do, since you got these changes now, and Jake's changes now, is we could either accept these like this if you want to, or the 1, 2, 3, whichever one you want to, amend it to get that done, or not amend it, and then defer it, and not vote second reading, and that would give us time to take either the amended with these amendments, or just defer it altogether and take these amendments that I gave you and what Jake gave you, and then we got 2 more weeks to look at it with all this stuff, and then decide at the next meeting whether we're going to accept any of these changes here or not, and then Jake's wording or not. Because Jake's wording may be more clearer than this, and we may not want to amend this to that, and then have to come back and add Jake's.
Actually, what you wrote,
Wording.
really good, pretty good.
Yeah, on top of that.
That's good information.
Could I also make one suggestion that I heard from Steve Crater? I think that Steve makes a very good point, that when you have people who are in the slumlord business or the landlord business, and there's a difference to me between a landlord and a slumlord, you know, those people are basically businessmen. They basically have investments, they're buying, selling properties and so forth. But when you have the case where, you know, you have one person who is, the example that Hardy gave, the person who left his home, but because of the decline in values couldn't sell it, now has to rent it to make the mortgage payments, and you're coming in and saying that, you know, you got to paint it. Oh, he says, I don't have the money to paint it. The reason why I'm renting it is because I can't sell it. You know, I think that we could craft too a hardship provision wherein the town administrator would have the ability to waive or defer the application of the requirements in the event of demonstrated hardship. I think that that's a very, very easy thing to add, and it's something else. You know, listening to Steve, I talked to Steve for 15, 20 minutes before he came in here today, and he makes a good point. Yet, what do you do in the case of hardship? And there are those cases all over town of people who are in situations like Artie's talking about. Both of those suggestions are good suggestions, and I think the hardship exemption too is something that we ought to add.
And one thing I want to add too, and we got emails from people in regards to, you know, and let me say this. We have an ordinance, as Mr. Crater spoke about too, we have an ordinance right now that speaks to residents in the town of Irmo. And it doesn't matter if you own the home or rent the home, it's a resident. You live in the home, you're supposed to do certain criteria. That's already in place. Whether it's strong enough or whether we enforce it enough is a questionable thing, but it's already in place. This doesn't require the tenant to do anything more than what the regular ordinance already requires the tenant to do, if I'm reading everything correctly here. This addresses the landlord, not the tenant. So it's not a you know, a double standard, because right now we have ordinance that says you got to keep your yard unsightly, or it can't be unsightly and unsanitary, or that you got to do this or you got to do that. So those things are already in place that will address any resident in the town of Irmo, regardless of whether they own or rent. The only thing this addresses, and as Mr. Crater had mentioned, you know, yes, you can get stuff off the Richland County or Lexington County records right now. Having someone's information and expecting them to return a phone call is two different things. I'm dealing with a personal situation with a relative, and you know, I know where the guy lives. I know his name, I know his phone number. It doesn't make him call me any easier, and he doesn't. And the same thing with these landlords. If they're out of town and some of them may be hardship situations, some of them may not. We've had plenty of instances where people lived out of town, and, you can call them, send them a letter, do whatever you want to do, but they're not going to respond. If there's a license, and we still run into that if the house is vacant, but if there's a license requirement that if they want to rent the house out, they got to respond, otherwise they lose that license, and then they will respond, and then they'll call us up and we'll tell them what you got to do. And I think too, if I'm reading this correctly, the inspections would only be done every year you get the permit. Is that correct? Or just the first time they get the permit?
We didn't elaborate on it.
So if
Would be a decision.
they come in and get the permit, we go out and drive by and look at it, make sure the minimum whatever's done. If as Mr. Craig mentioned, somebody moves out, we don't have to ride back out again because he's already got a permit. If that's my firm reading.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we wouldn't go back
I
out
think
until
it-
the following year, or I don't know if we'd go again unless he lets it go. And then he comes back in and get a new one, then we'll do another inspection. But we wouldn't do another inspection unless, it says here, that thing that I added, that all of these must be continually maintained. Unless they quit maintaining them sometime, then we have to go back out and inspect.
My understanding of the inspection would be, it would be subject to inspection. It's not that we had to go make an inspection. It's kind of like the business license.
Right.
A business license is subject to an audit.
Right.
Doesn't mean that we go and audit. But if the issue came up, I say it's bad, you say it's good, vice versa, then you've got the language there that an inspection could be made. Not that it has to be made.
I don't think we want to inspect 700 houses every year. Impossible.
And I definitely don't want to go into them either. I know the fire marshal mentioned something about wanting to check windows. Is that, they would just have to do this
Just
themselves. They
recommendation.
wouldn't, okay. So they could either just sign off on it and it is done, the landlord, or we'd have to go inspect if we felt there was reason to. And again, what we can do, since we've had a motion for second reading on the one that's in our book, we can either make any of these we want to, or take the ones I gave you and the ones they gave you and defer. Because one thing we might want to do is, before we add these, whatever they are, 6 changes, we might want to either decide on keeping this or doing Jake, and then amend that to that, so that we don't, I don't know.
Well, we're talking about the one that's on the iPad.
Right now, right here, yeah, the iPad.
So, is it possible that we move this thing forward? We've been debating this for several months now. I'm having problems with the language, and I think we can iron this out. If we can iron this out tonight, I know it's 8:15, I don't mind waiting here until we get it done, but let's just iron it out tonight so we can have one final document that we're going to work forward.
There's a motion right now for this one.
Right.
You can make a motion if, I'll make
Let's
a
talk
motion.
about it so we can iron out the details. I'm willing to do that tonight, because I think it's important enough that we try to figure out a language. You got some changes, I don't know why we didn't get it ahead of time, you got some changes.
I just kind
We got
of
this from Jake today,
Well,
I'm trying to get Paul's ordinance down to a point where we can say, okay, this is the ordinance that's published, and that's what we're gonna vote on. I have some issues with certain language in here. You got some issues with certain language. Let's just get it all ironed out right now.
Well, does anybody want to make a motion for this, the one that Jake gave us, and change to that, or wait on that? Or do you want to make a motion to go with these changes here one by one, or all in the page? Do it either way.
I hate to painfully do this, but I think we can go by it one by one.
Okay.
I don't see any way to do it.
Well,
We got enough input here from Jake, from you, from our constituents out here, that I think we need to at least have a document at the end of this.
one thing we can do is
Move forward.
go to 1117. I'll make a motion to add under section 1117 business license fee.
And again, I'm gonna be you know, I'm like, I'm by myself, I mean, you all.
Okay, it's 11:16 in Jake's.
That's why I was messed up.
In Jake's, you know, you dropped a couple paragraphs out.
Yeah, and he goes from 11:11 to 11:13. Where's 11:12, Jake?
You took 11, 12 out, you can see that right there.
I took it out.
Okay.
That was
Go with the one that's on the iPad now, 1117, and I'd make a motion that we add E to the ABCD that's already there. Is there a second?
Second.
Be right there.
Okay, get on with this if we're gonna do it.
Let's, here, we got this?
Oh.
There's a lot of changes, I mean, I don't know how the wording,
Here,
I don't know what verbiage was changed from the original.
so the motion is to add item E to 1117, and we got a second. Is there, any discussion?
No, I agree.
All right. We'll just, all in favor of that change, do so show of hands. And
Thank you.
then,
You keeping track of this?
I've already written it down. Yeah,
Oh,
I
you
got
are.
that all. Right.
Okay.
under section 1119, which is the
Oh,
standards,
fine.
and that's the one on the iPad, the second paragraph, or the top paragraph up there, where it says, for the purpose of this ordinance, and then the second sentence is, the standards shall be reflected on the rental housing inspection form. And I make a motion to add, the landlord, owner, property manager, personnel are responsible for informing and providing these standards to their tenant. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion?
So you're saying in 1119?
Yeah, I'm just kind of making that little statement at the very top, so that they know they got to pass it on or let them know it's their responsibility, not ours to inform. Any discussion? All ready to vote? All in favor, show of hands. And then, I'll make a motion for 1119, number 9, under parking spaces, where it says on the second line of that paragraph, per occupant as required by the town of Irmo. I was going to delete that and change that to per vehicle owned or operated or registered by tenant, person, occupant of permitted property. And can I make a motion for that? No. I'll make a motion for that change. Is there a second?
I disagree on that one. We have an ordinance right now that says you have to have a,
Well, we gotta have a second, right?
I'll second it.
Oh, okay.
well, I disagree with that then.
Okay, I have a problem with that one too, the way it's worded. Where it says should be at least one all-weather service parking space per occupant as required by the town of Irmo zoning ordinance. And I believe our code does state that. Now, it goes on to say, for new rental units where parking is required beyond 2 spaces, those spaces shall be behind the building line. I find that to be very difficult.
Yeah.
If somebody were to, a house becomes a new, I'm gonna take my house, for example, and I live in Old Friarsgate, where our lots are bigger than the lots in New Friarsgate for the most part. But it would be very difficult to get a car behind my house, especially for a regular parking space, if I rented my house to someone that had 3 cars. Because here it says they could only have 2 out.
Right.
I think that when you look at what Jake had in his, about the, let me get to the right place here. 1119, wasn't it?
Okay, changes.
1118 on that.
And actually, it would be 1117.
Well, where did I see
Well,
it?
it would be 1118.
Okay. There shall be one all-weather parking, surface parking space per occupant as required by town ordinance. That's for new rentals.
And we could delete that new rentals altogether and just have it.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything.
Yeah.
No, I see.
Section 18, 17.
I just find that is gonna be difficult to do. I just think that, you know, for example, I'll use my home, for an example. I have 4 cars. They're all parked in the driveway. My driveway is of concrete. This, was a 2-car garage, and it was capable of handling 4 cars not being on the street. So 4 cars should be able to be parked there. It's a parking surface. It's not in the yard. But it would be very difficult, almost impossible, because of the lie of the land. Granted, I have the easement on the side of the house, but the lie of the land is not conducive to pulling a car around back.
I think we should put a period right there.
We'll just take that second.
The second
last
sentence.
sentence.
Yeah.
I can agree with that, if you take out that. Do you have a problem with that?
No, that's fine.
So you can make an amendment to the amendment and, or I can withdraw mine and then we can change that to.
Okay, either way. Would you like to withdraw yours?
Yes, I'll withdraw that motion and then Paul seconded it if you want
Would you withdraw your second?
I will withdraw my second.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we look at, as in the iPad, parking spaces number 9, where it reads, there shall be at least one all-weathered surface parking space per occupant as required by the town zoning ordinance, period.
Right.
Now, do you want to change that wherever it was to per occupant? I mean, get rid of per occupant, change it to the per vehicle only, so that they gotta have parking per vehicle or they.
No, per occupant is fine. I mean, you might have an occupant that has 2 vehicles.
Yeah, but if you leave it as per occupant, they could have 5 occupants in the house but only 1 car.
That's fine.
Or they could have one occupant in the house with 5 cars.
Right.
But if they have,
But they still got to park on the
You gotta park on
parking
the surface.
surface.
That's what we're getting at. It's not.
right now though, if it says there's only 1 all-weather surface per occupant, if I had 3 kids under 18 in the house, then by this I'd have to have 5 parking spaces.
Well, they're occupants.
Yeah, but I don't need a parking space for a 15-year-old or a 10-year-old.
I think
But
the
you
way
would
it
be
reads
allowed
is up to,
Up to, you could.
up to. That's the way I read it.
There should be at least 1.
You got 5 occupants in 1 car or 5 occupants in 5 cars. Either one of them would be acceptable.
But then it doesn't say per car, it says per
Right.
occupant. So.
Whoever
Could you
gets
say
in the house
one
with their driveway
all-weather
is all
parking
car.
space per car? Not per occupant, but per car.
Yeah, because I think that would be the thing that would, if they rented somebody's got 3 cars, they need 3 parking. If they rented somebody with 2, they just need 2. If they rented somebody with 5, but they still only got 2 cars, they only need 2 places.
Or
Just,
if a single mom rents it with 6 kids, she only needs however many cars.
yeah, how many cars they got licensed?
So changing the word occupant to car,
How about vehicle?
vehicle. Okay?
All-weather surface parking space per vehicle.
Per vehicle, as required by the town of Irmo zoning ordinance, period.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
No. You got that right here too, there should be at least 1 all-weather
Got that, Bob?
surface parking space per occupant, and then the rest stays as,
do we have a provision here to prevent 18-wheeler trucks?
Yeah, that's already excluded in the town code. Even the tractors.
Yes, same. So they're putting your license registered, I mean, that's all in town code already. We can enforce that.
So, all in favor of Harvey's amendment as is?
Yes, that's
Okay. All right, now where are we at, number 12? Um, 12. I'll make a motion, then we amend number 12, tree debris. On the second sentence where it says, at the curb for pickup by trash collector, I was going to change that to place at the curb, comma, in yard, comma, and not in road or on public sidewalk for pickup by trash collector. Just to make sure that people
Before
know.
we do that, can I ask a question for
Yeah.
clarification? I'm going to go back to a street in Old Friars Gate where we have put a sidewalk. Knowing the debris that we put out there to be picked up, you say it has to be placed at the curb, but yet in the yard, but yet it can't be on the sidewalk. It leaves a little grassy strip about that big.
Or you could say behind the sidewalk or something.
Then they're not going to pick it up in the yard, if it's that far up in the yard. Would it be just as clear to say place at the curb?
But the only thing is, I know
Not in the street, but the curb is actually in the street.
we've had, I've had, I don't know for sure if they've all called the town, as I've told them to, where people have complained about, people say cutting, limbs down, whatever, and they pile it up in the road instead of in the yard. And then neighbors riding it down the road, drive around it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the same thing with bags of leaves, they pile it in the road instead of in the yard. And that's the only reason I was trying to clarify that at that time, because a lot of times I think what happens too.
I think that's a very clear margin if you don't have a sidewalk in front of your house.
Yeah,
But you've excluded it being on the sidewalk. So it's kind of hard to get, I question if you can take a big black plastic bag of leaves and place it not in the street,
But in that little spot.
but in that little spot, not get it on the sidewalk.
Yeah, you could either not change it, leave it.
But
as is,
then
or
we also have an issue with someone in the patio homes over here. They had something on the sidewalk, somebody was trying to walk the
Yeah,
sidewalk.
we've had, and that was one of the places where they took their stuff in the sidewalk and the lady was in a wheelchair, couldn't get around it, and,
Exactly. So,
um,
I'm just asking for clarification before you make the motion.
well, we can either, did I make a motion yet or not?
No.
Yes, you did.
I
Oh,
asked-
did?
You did? Okay.
All right, let me just write that down for you. 1119, number 12. We can either not second it and then change it.
I'll second it.
Oh, okay. Well, now we can change it again if we need to either clarify that better or whatever the council thinks. I think we're trying to make sure people put it at the road, not in the road, and basically not on the sidewalk.
There is a sidewalk in such a small strip of land. There's no way to do it, right?
Right.
Well, you just place it behind the sidewalk.
Well, then they won't pick it up.
Well, they will, I think. I mean, it should.
So will they pick it up?
They should.
Okay. Okay.
We just-
I'm
I
hoping
think the
y'all
main
count
thing is
on
make sure
that.
we're not blocking the sidewalk from people in wheelchair or whatever.
I think when you word it,
Okay.
That works, okay.
I think it works.
All right.
All right. All in favor of that amendment? Good. And do you understand it, Kim? I mean, is it making, you got what it,
We have it written right here, Kim. Do you have this?
Yes.
Yes, I got
Okay.
it, yes, that's
Okay.
the next one, I'll make an amendment, is to add, this was on there, right, to add number 13, and what I wrote here, it says, in the title lead, must be bagged, placed at the curb, in the yard, not in the road or on the sidewalk for pickup by trash collector. Is there a motion? Or I'll make a motion, yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No, I think that kind of fits the same as the tree debris. It's just,
All in favor? And the last motion would be 1119, and then just a statement that would be added at the bottom of that page. And I'm guessing, assuming, and all this too, that this page here can be kind of made attached to the application form, so that they get that and they can give that to whoever, they got the whole thing or the whole thing, can give it to the tenant or got it forever to give it to whoever. To add at the end of all this on section 1119, numbers 1 through 13 above must be continually maintained during the duration of the permit, so that they don't come do it, and then 5 months later they're back to square one, and we're like, hey, you didn't have to do it just to get the permit, you got to keep it up to speed, so to speak. I'll make a motion for that change.
I'll second.
can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
I have no problem with the way it's worded, but as we have said, we're looking at this as being for the homeowner as well. Do we want to add after the word permit homeowner?
But this is just for the landlord, because this is what the landlord would get when he gets that permit and fills out his application. He would be given a copy of that and sign it off.
Okay.
And then hopefully he'll give it to the tenant and tell them, don't forget you gotta do this.
Okay.
Yeah, but
And then later,
the problem though is again, separating two classes of people, the renters versus the homeowners. As a homeowner, if you tell me I gotta do all of this all the time, and I know we're not talking about that now, but if you tell me, if later on we pass the same orders for our homeowners, and you say I gotta do all this stuff all the time, yeah, I can handle most of this stuff, but yeah, when it comes to,
well, most of this stuff you would be doing, quote, already. Because if you're bagging leaves, you already know you're supposed to bag leaves,
Yeah.
where a tenant may not know, because they might move from where they got a vacuum truck.
but the maintenance, the maintenance part is when the gutters and stuff like that is what I'm honestly.
I don't like those.
Well, and
I
again,
mean, I'm saying, as an owner, if you tell me I gotta maintain my gutters being in optimal, rust-free condition, I'm gonna say, great, buy me some gutters. I'll put 'em
well,
up.
yeah, this doesn't address,
I know, but it's going to address me later on. You know what I'm saying? If we're setting this up for renters or landlords, and then in the future we're gonna adopt the same policy for owners, then this is where I'm having problems at.
right, well, and I'll,
That's all, I'm just saying, that's gotta be universally
Right.
applied.
but I don't know, and again, if say a landlord is gonna, buy a home, rent it out, and do whatever, and, he doesn't want to fix the gutters on the house, because the tenant's not gonna do it. I mean, for sure, they're not gonna do that. That's not their responsibility. Or the porch rails or decking or any of that stuff. Some of these would be the landlord's responsibility to maintain that property, the lights, not working on the
We're
outside.
gonna have
of the
to
house.
universally apply this to owners.
No, because we already have an ordinance right now that says if you live in the town of Irmo, here's the requirement you've got to do, which is whatever all that ordinance does say. Mainly keep your house not slightly not in cemetery. whatever.
And let me ask you, consider this, I'll ask Jake. We use the word here as a business license fee for the landlord, but here we've called it a permit. I don't know that I'd have to read through it again, see if we've used the word permit anywhere else.
It ought
Yeah.
to use the word license. That
Or
permit should be changed to license.
eliminate the word permit and say numbers 1 through 13 above must be continually maintained during the duration of the occupancy.
Of the license.
License
Of the
or
license.
occupancy?
Of the license.
Because I think in here, if I'm remembering, you come in and get a business license, and when you're filling out that license, then we give you a permit to go rent the house.
Is that what it is?
Kind of
Okay.
correct, and then you get that permit, not only do you keep it in your pocket or put it in your records or stick it on the door, but they have to have that permit for each house. And for each house, they only have to have one license, but they have to have a permit for each house.
Oh, okay.
And then if
I
they,
stand
sometime
corrected.
during the year, they don't do whatever they're supposed to do, then we could either not issue that one permit on that one property, or just not issue a license altogether if you have.
Gotcha.
No.
You can change it, just word continually maintained.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That fixes that. That's a beautiful amendment. That clip,
If
that
we
makes
make
it
a-
very plain. Continually maintained.
We did make, I made a motion, and Paul
You
seconded
make
that.
a motion, second.
And what I'll do is just make another amendment, if that makes it any easier, to amend that to delete during the duration of the permit.
So a period after the word maintain.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And is there a
That
second
makes
to
it
that?
very clear for me.
Second.
Okay.
Okay. So now we have, the last amendment is 1 through 13 above must be continually maintained, period. All in favor? All right, now, that's done. Now, the next thing would be, do we want to
Approve the original
approve
ordinance.
this one, or do we want to change to this one, or is there other
No, I mean,
amendments that other people want to?
I'm going from the one that's on the iPad.
Right, okay.
I mean, is that, that's what everybody can make changes,
Yes,
right? Now, what Jake has given us
Doesn't affect the change.
doesn't affect any changes we made, but is there anything in here, Jake, that you,
What I would suggest you do, Barry, is I would suggest that you consider getting second reading of what you just did. Take what I have written home with you, study it, and make whatever changes off of that you want to approve when it comes to third reading. Because this is your ordinance, not mine. You know, I don't think it's fair to ask y'all to just accept what I've written as some sort of, you know, go ahead and amend it. Go ahead and do your second reading. Take what I've written and compare the two, and before you do third reading, let's take a look at what you like that I did and what you don't like that I did.
And if there's any other amendments or changes or just whatever on the one that's on the iPad, now would be a time to do that, so we get at least that straight before we do anything else. Is there any other amendment?
I got one more question for you, Jake. On yours, for instance, in section 1101, where it talks about violations, you add the word means in there. Is that some legal thing that you have to do?
Just trying to write an English sentence, so
Oh, okay.
basically it puts a verb in.
Okay, I got you.
Verbs are good.
No problem, I just really want, okay. Things like that aren't a problem, but we just have to incorporate that in there. So, do you want to do that now, or you want to do that next
You
week?
do that in third reading.
Yeah, I want to read this.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine.
Now, is there any other changes we want to make to the one
Yes,
on the iPad?
I don't think gutters are nearly as important as the roof. And there's nothing in here about the roof. If you want to put gutters must be firmly attached.
Where are you at?
I'm on number 1119, number 4, gutters. We can put it together, gutter and roofing. If you know, gutters must be firmly attached to the roof, but I think we need to say somewhere, if a third of the roof is missing, it needs to be replaced.
Because we have that situation.
Because we have that situation already.
So tarps are not allowed?
Just for 24 hours, but we're not going to bother to write that down for them. But I don't know how to, I want to.
Well, we could, add, because we got a 13 now.
Well, we can change that.
You could add 14, and then,
It could be added to gutters, since it's all
Part of
interconnected.
the roof's
Yeah.
structure.
So you say take it out or add it?
I'm saying you can leave the part that gutters must be firmly attached to the roof, period. Cannot sag, leak, during hailstorms or whatever, those things happen. I'd take all that out and then put roofs must be, in an acceptable, habitable condition.
Roofs must be maintained in a reasonable fashion so that they do not leak, and do not contain, stains or other.
No, see,
well,
Now,
the
that's
thing
going
is,
too far.
Okay, so they do not leak?
But do not leave.
yeah, but you're not gonna know the roof's leaking unless you're inside the house.
Well, so they do not leak and in a way that the shingles are within the applicable warranty period.
See, you're not gonna, see, now you get into, okay, fine, you wanna replace my roof? Have at it.
Well, I do
Irmo
want,
is in town, you can fix it.
I do think that you ought to have I mean, this is just me, but I do think that you ought to have a law in town which says that if you're going to rent a piece of property to a family, to children, to babies, and they're gonna have to live under that roof, that they ought to at least have an adequately warranted and functional roof.
And I agree with you in the concept of how do you, again, I'm going back and forth, how do I apply this to landlords and not apply that to a homeowner?
well, because just like your business, in my business, if I came into Irmo and said, I want to open up a business and I'm gonna, whatever, they're gonna tell me basically, yes, you can do that there, you can do that here, you gotta do this, you gotta have so many bathrooms, you gotta have so much parking, you gotta have wheelchair accessibility, you gotta, on and on and on. And I agree with that. Now, if I want to live in a house that has a leaky roof and it's my home, then we say it's my personal business, but it is. But if we're going to allow a landlord to buy a property, then to tell him that he's got to maintain the house in livable condition and keep the roof up, you could turn around and say the roof needs to be in properly maintained order, and tarps are only temporary nature of 30 days, or only allowed for temporary use for 30 days. And then he knows if a tree falls on the house, then he can pull the tree off, put a tarp on it, and get bids and do whatever he's got to do to fix it. If he wants to leave the tarp on there and rent the house out, then sometime we're going to come say, hey, either fix the roof or you can't do it. Because whoever lived in the house, now they may have moved out too while the
But
house, while the house
that's
was
a
repaired and all
tarp
that
on the
stuff.
roof.
Right.
That's not a roof that's leaking. You're not gonna know the roof leaks unless you're in the house.
Right.
I mean, I understand visually, we
Yes,
have
so
a
the only thing we
situation
could
we're trying to address is the one with the tarp.
Would be the ones with tarps on it.
That's
or-
not a problem.
This needs to be written away from here, because I can't write it while y'all are
Yeah.
talking anyway.
Well, the one thing we can
Number 4
do
needs
is,
to be changed, but I can do it for the next meeting.
yeah, do it for the next meeting, come back, or just add a number, whatever, 14, whatever, a separate.
But we can leave it the way it is and go right ahead to number 10, where we have police officers measuring the height of grass. This is ridiculous. We should not do this.
Well, if I could add,
Uh,
8 inches occurs most times, even in my yard.
Are you talking about weeds, centipedes, or?
I think we passed by some houses that had grass that was in the category of 24 inches.
Okay, that's unacceptable.
And I think maybe that's what should be, that's really extreme. That's
Yeah.
really.
In excess of 12 inches or something, or?
But yeah,
One
before
foot?
we mow our grass the first time of the year, I do have weeds that are 8 inches high.
Mhm.
So I would take exception to this. Now, it's not the whole grass, it's not the lawn, it's just a few,
Shoot here and there,
huh?
just shoot here and there.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a game.
You want to make a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that we change in 11.
Change 10.
Yeah.
You made a motion to, item for gutters. You want to withdraw that because you haven't?
Now, I want to withdraw it, yeah, because
Okay.
we're going to rewrite it when I'm away from these people that are bothering me.
So now
I
you're
know what I
gonna,
want to say, but I need peace and quiet to say it.
so your motion for number
This is for 1119, number 10,
is to change 8 to what?
12. This is one of those things, you're going to know when you see it. You know, if there's bugs flying everywhere, and insects and snakes and stuff, it's too high, snakes. Then it's too high, so
Is there a, second?
very second.
Second, yes. Anything else, ma'am?
Any discussion? And what did you say, 12?
12, I just think that's more reasonable.
Well, and I'll say, in this or that, then we can all say what we want to. I think you said, what, 24? You said 12? And the 8 came from me, because I think originally you had, what?
I had
12, okay.
Great man.
Centipede, for instance, 2 inches. Whatever St. Augustine is probably 4. So, 6 inches is probably high. 8 inches is probably, if you let your grass grow much more than that, then either it isn't grass or it's weed. But
We have grass and weed height, not just grass.
right,
Weed.
and I can understand because some weeds will get high quick. But if you don't have something in there, then 12 inches may be better. I think it's better than 24. But whatever. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Of the 12 inches.
That's 12. We'll go along with that now and see. So that was already changed. 12. Anything else?
No, I think we ought to read Jake's and go over everything again and then
And then you can,
come written and prepared.
you have your,
Because this is a lot to digest.
Yeah, if I can just point one thing out, I am assuming that Mr. Moore's changes were, based on legal definitions and things that are more enforceable.
Yeah. Oh, and I think that, this is a heck of an undertaking to try and put something together. Between Brooks and myself and Bob, I think we've got the outline of a fairly fair, decent, and workable ordinance, don't you, Bob?
Well, I say that because I'm not sure, do we want to make changes if we're talking about legal changes and enforceable
No,
standards?
we don't want to change that.
That's all I'm asking.
And when you want to make those changes, like you said, means, put those verbs together, so,
Well,
those changes you talked about, right?
well, you took a couple paragraphs out, thank you.
Yeah, I have to read it out.
Okay.
and let me ask this, since you took some numbers off, so to speak, somebody mentioned a couple of numbers.
I have to change the numbers.
Okay, so you'll change the number, get that in
Get it back
order,
to line.
and then, so it will be, okay. So you can do that and then send us out a new one with this, and
Just your changes to Jake's and let everybody review that, because you still have the old version on your iPad.
Right.
You want to compare what paragraph.
we can get a new one on our iPad of all the amendments tonight when it passes, and then you can also renumber this one and send it to us, and we can better compare it. And I don't know if you can, sorry, don't have to tomorrow, I don't know if you can, what do we call it, italicize, what do you do? So that you know, what's been changed. Okay. Any more discussion or any more amendments? None. So as we have it amended with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it looks like amendments. We'll vote on the amended, and then we'll have to vote on the other. All in favor of the amended sections to this landlord ordinance, 1212. Do so, show of hands. So all the amendments passed. And now, as far as second reading of ordinance 1212 as amended. All in favor of that? Now, new business. Item A, discussion of Macedonia Church Parade, and Councilman Walker has to be on the agenda, and I'll let you start.
Yeah, I just got an email that they were having they're planning a parade, a veterans parade or something. And I don't have the email handy right now, but the details were that they want to do a parade down on Main Street from Sanders Road. And they were looking for us to support that as far as a town saying, yes, we agree that we should have this parade, or what?
They were looking for us to help promote it. There's a difference, I mean, supporting it, I have no problem with us supporting it, but a flyer going out with our town seal on it, we were promoting the parade, I wasn't sure if we should do that.
Okay, and the reason why we shouldn't do that is what? I don't know why. That's why it's put on the agenda.
But I think too, what Bob was asking is, before he goes and tells Pastor Seabrook that yes, we will support him 100%, whatever that means, then he wanted to make sure town was agreeable, or for us to give him some leeway or some guidelines as to we'll do this or not do that, or we'll do this or whatever we'll do.
Well, certainly.
And he knows for sure what to do.
Okay, I got you. So certainly, I think the church that wants to put on this parade, and we can certainly support an effort to do that. I don't see any problem with that at all. Since he's going down on Main Street in Irmo, I mean, if he wants the town to support it by giving him the right to use our seal, saying that the town of Irmo supports it, I don't see what the problem is. I mean,
There's a cost involved. You have to hire police officers.
we're not talking about spending money, we're just talking about
Well,
putting
you
the
said
seal.
support.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the
That
question. What
could
does that
be
mean?
financial support.
Yeah.
But nobody's asked me for financial support. Has he asked you for financial support?
I don't think that he used it, that would be a
He did it
reason.
once, yeah.
From my talking with him
Oh, okay.
over at the day that we met at the New Veterans Park,
Mm-hmm.
I talked with him at length about it, and I don't think he had, because he had the deer in the headlights look, when I started talking about, the cost of police officers.
Right.
And we kind of went through some of the things that he's later come back to Bob, and Bob has helped him with the letter to the highway department.
Mm-hmm.
That the town endorses the closing of the road if the highway department concurs, but the highway department has a group of requirements, like he has to show that there will be detours and this kind of thing and that kind of thing, and he has to spell all of that out. And when I talked to him about his plan, there didn't seem to be one.
Oh, okay.
Other than this was a good idea, sure. But as we all know, you gotta have a plan, so you can check all those little boxes to get the approval of DOT, because that is their road. And I know they require us the police chief to show them that, he's gonna be able to maintain the traffic either by stopping it or rerouting it, that type thing. And I don't think that, because, I responded to Bob, does he understand the cost of doing that? The orchestra pays quite a premium to have our own parade, town parade, to the police department, for law enforcement to protect us at those intersections during the traffic control. So,
Have we conveyed that information to Reverend Seabrook?
I have.
You have?
I talked to Chief Buck to get an idea. I mean, it's a standard $30 per hour per officer. We needed 2 with each barrier, each road closing, but the Reverend's initial route went from Crossroads all the way down to Lake Murray. So we were looking at closing like 10 or 12 intersections at 2 officers for $30 an hour. He said the parade was going to be 2 hours long, which is probably a minimum of 4 hours. So we were looking at about $1,700 in fees to pay the police officers off duty. So I haven't heard back from him since I sent him that. And I sent him the letter, all the information, who to send the letter to. He just needed put it on his letterhead.
Okay.
It's in the DOT.
All right, well, that's fine. I mean, as long as you give him the information
Oh,
he's
yeah.
asked, as well as getting it, and the fact that, you know, using our town seal, saying that we support that parade is a little bit different than financially supporting it, and that's what I was just trying to separate the two.
Well, my initial issue was, were we helping to promote it or support it? I mean, support we can do, but we're not actively
Yeah.
promoting, we don't
Well,
promote anything else.
that's his function, that's his parade, that's his project. He's gonna promote it however he does it. I don't know how he's planning, nobody's talking to me about it, so.
I haven't heard anything else.
Okay, I don't know if anybody else, but anyway, I don't see why we can't lend him a hand in doing that where we can.
So far, we have.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you kind of let them assistance with the closing and what to do and everything.
Very good.
And I think, you know, he would have to make a choice as to whether or not he can afford to pay something.
Correct.
And then, I think at one time, he told me he was talking to, Riverton Hills and maybe one other church, I can't remember.
We talked about the hills, I don't know which other church.
Yeah, I think it was more, to see if they were going to, financially help or volunteer help, people-wise help, and that kind of stuff. I hadn't heard anything since, I'm not sure. That may be something he is going to do next, is try to make sure he's got money, either from other churches or,
Yeah.
you know.
But Councilman News made a good point earlier and said, you know, we have not asked him if he would like to participate in the orchestra parade, because he wants to have the parade August 18th. That's just a month before the orchestra parade. Maybe you could slide in somewhere in the orchestra parade.
Good. I know it's not my place, but one of the things that concerns you is Macedonia is a very small church, and they are in the process of receiving some help right now, and they are trying to do some great things, and people are trying to help them. You wonder if the idea of what it takes to promote, establish, and do a parade, if they have a realistic handle or the manpower to actually pull that off. Now, if they got a church the size of Riverwood Hills or someone that big, maybe they could. But a veterans parade like that, you're talking about moving a lot of people and coordinating an awful lot, and I'm not certain. I mean, the orchestra, one of their big deals is the parade, and it works people to death. A lot of people in that church are older people, and you wonder if they really have a full handle on what they're talking about. We're talking about doing a dedication of the Veterans Park on Veterans Day in November 12th. You know, it would be maybe a more doable deal for them to have some sort of major presence in the Veterans Day celebration and the dedication of that Veterans Park on November 12th. They're simply interested in trying to honor the veterans and to do it as a church, as a community project. If we were to suggest to them maybe that they concentrate on helping us do the veterans dedication in November, it might be more doable for them. And since apparently the Arbor Day Committee and the town is going to be involved in actually promoting the Veterans Day recognition and dedication of the park, it's the kind of thing that they can participate in and maybe not have to take the full responsibility for. And it might work better for them. I mean, you might want to.
There's a good possibility that they could trim some of this cost dramatically by staging, as I understood it, he was wanting to do kind of the same thing that the orchestra does, stage it at Crossroads and come in town. If they staged around the park and came down Woodrow Street, culminating at the Veterans Park, we have just eliminated probably 80 to 90% of the law enforcement needs
Sure.
at intersections.
Just right down Woodrow Street. Come from
Right
this
down
park,
Woodrow
come
Street.
from this park to the other park, and it works, it can be,
We did that when we closed off Woodrow Street for that, when we did the Blue Star Monument
no problem.
out there. If they did something like that, you know,
What's the problem?
again, I don't know how many units that they're looking at having here, but that could be a very good possibility and get it affordable.
And you could wind up asking Sir if you could terminate in his parking lot, which he'd probably say yes.
Absolutely.
And that takes all the traffic out of the way and makes life very, very.
My point exactly with law enforcement.
Right.
And satisfying DOT, we haven't had to set up detours
And they've had their parade. And they've helped us with the dedication of the Veterans Park.
So you suggest,
I'll email him and try to call him tomorrow.
there you go.
Any other discussion? And next item on our agenda is presentation by citizens. This is the time of the meeting where citizens can come speak to us about anything, regardless of whether it's on the agenda or not. All we ask is that you give us your name and address for the record. Is there anyone here who would like to address the council on any matter whatsoever? Being none, and let's keep up like this. Being none, executive session, and I think, Paul, you had a,
Yes.
executive session.
Contractual matter regarding the proposed business coming into town.
And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? We're going to executive session to discuss this. There will be no votes taken or anything, and then we'll come back out to adjourn. There were no votes taken, just a discussion about a contractual matter, no votes taken. And is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So adjourned.